Picture yourself on a cliff, gazing out over a blinding white wasteland. No water, just endless salt stretching to the horizon. 6 million years ago, the Mediterranean wasn't a sea. It was a desert. The air stung with salt dust, the silence broken only by the wind over cracked minerals. This was the Messinian salinity crisis, one of Earth's most extreme transformations. The basin lay thousands of feet below the world's oceans, a chasm of heat and desolation. Temperatures soared, rivers evaporated instantly, and salt crust grew kilometers thick. Imagine Death Valley, but deeper, hotter, and utterly lifeless. The Mediterranean's vibrant ecosystem vanished, replaced by a tomb of salt. The ground crunched beneath your feet. Ancient islands now stood as lonely mesas. The sea's memory faded, replaced by a brilliant white scar visible from space. This wasn't a quick event. It took thousands of years. The sea shrank, leaving behind toxic brine lakes, where only the hardiest microbes survived. The stage was set for one of the most spectacular comebacks in geological history. The universe abhors a vacuum. And this giant, empty basin was waiting to be filled. What could possibly refill a sea lost to time? The answer would be one of the most violent floods the world has ever seen. How do you drain a sea? Not by magic, but by the slow grind of tectonic plates. Africa collided with Eurasia, squeezing the ancient Tethys Ocean and closing the gateways to the Atlantic. Two narrow seaways, one in Spain, one in Morocco, were slowly lifted by the rising land. Imagine the Earth building a dam, centimeter by centimeter, over millennia. At first, the Mediterranean just got saltier as the Atlantic's flow dwindled. Then, about 596 million years ago, the final barrier rose. The gates slammed shut. Cut off from the Atlantic, the Mediterranean was doomed. In its hot, dry climate, evaporation far outpaced river inflow. The sea shrank, coastlines retreated, and sun-baked mudflats turned to salt. Within a few thousand years, a mighty sea became a patchwork of dying, ultra-salty lakes. The scale was unprecedented. Draining the Mediterranean required a perfect storm of geology and climate. Tectonic uplift built the barrier. Arid climate fueled evaporation. The empty basin was a deep, dry wound on Earth's surface. But the same forces that closed the gates were still at work. Pressure was building behind the rock dam. Something had to give. For millennia, the Atlantic pressed against a thin wall at Gibraltar. On one side, ocean. On the other, a vast, empty chasm. The pressure was immense. The rock dam couldn't hold forever. Then, 533 million years ago, it broke. A trickle became a torrent. The Zanclean Megaflood began. Water thundered over the Gibraltar sill, creating a waterfall hundreds of times larger than Niagara, taller than any on Earth. The roar shook the ground for miles, mist shot into the sky, and the Atlantic poured into the empty basin. The floodwaters blasted across the salt flats, advancing at over 100 miles per hour. The flow rate was 1,000 times greater than the Amazon River. The water carved the Strait of Gibraltar in months or years, a liquid bulldozer reshaping the land. At the flood's peak, the Mediterranean rose by more than 10 meters every day. Islands vanished in hours, coastlines redrawn daily. In less than 2 years, maybe just months, the Mediterranean was reborn. The great desert drowned beneath the waves. The sea returned in a baptism of unimaginable violence. The world would never be the same. To grasp the Zanclean megaflood scale, compare it to modern disasters. Hurricane Katrina's storm surge was devastating, but the Zanclean flood unleashed the equivalent of 10,000 Katrinas every day. The peak flow at Gibraltar was 100 million cubic meters per second, enough to fill the Empire State Building 90 times a second. The Amazon River is mighty, but the Zanclean flood was 500 times greater. It wasn't a river, it was a slice of the ocean itself. The energy released was like thousands of nuclear bombs every second, carving a deep canyon at Gibraltar. Ancient myths tell of great floods, but the Zanclean event dwarfs them all. It happened before humans, but it shows that planet-altering floods are real. The Earth's history is full of deluges that make our legends seem modest. The Zanclean flood was a real-life event of biblical proportions. Its scars are still visible today. The Mediterranean's rebirth was a planetary spectacle, and it all happened in the blink of a geological eye. How do we know this happened? The evidence is written in stone. In the 1970s, scientists drilled into the Mediterranean floor and found thick layers of salt, miles deep, buried beneath marine sediment. This was proof of the Messinian salinity crisis. Seismic imaging at Gibraltar reveals a massive U-shaped channel carved into bedrock, filled with chaotic debris, a scar left by a cataclysmic flood. Further into the Mediterranean, seismic data shows a sharp, eroded surface separating dried-out Messinian layers from younger marine ones. This unconformity marks the path of the floodwaters. Computer models, fed with geological data, recreate the flood speed, volume, and duration. The story is pieced together from rock, seismic images, and simulations. The Mediterranean's rebirth is not just a theory, it's a story told by the Earth itself. The evidence is overwhelming. The day the Atlantic roared back to life is etched in stone. The Messinian salinity crisis was a biological apocalypse. As the sea dried, most marine life perished. Only a few escaped to the Atlantic. The Mediterranean became a sterile wasteland, its rich ecosystem erased. When the Zanclean floodwaters returned, they brought life. Atlantic species swept in, recolonizing the basin. It was an instant reset. One moment, a lifeless salt pan. The next, a new ocean teeming with pioneers. Recovery took thousands, even millions of years. Plankton and invertebrates came first, then fish, then larger predators. The new Mediterranean was different, an extension of the Atlantic, home to new species that evolved in isolation. The crisis and flood fundamentally reshaped the region's biology. The DNA of today's Mediterranean creatures still carries the mark of this reset. It's a powerful reminder of how fragile and resilient life can be. Why care about a flood from 5 million years ago? Because it's a warning. The Zanclean megaflood shows that Earth's climate and geography can change with shocking speed. We think of geological change as slow, but tipping points can trigger rapid, irreversible shifts. Today, human-driven climate change is melting glaciers and raising sea levels. The Zanclean story reminds us that sea level change can be catastrophic. The forces are different, but the principle is the same. Move enough water, and the world transforms. Imagine the West Antarctic ice sheet collapsing, enough water to raise sea levels by meters. It wouldn't happen in months, but it would still be a disaster for millions. The ancient flood shows what happens when water is suddenly unleashed. Recovery takes millennia, not lifetimes. The Zanclean megaflood is a stark warning. Earth's stability is not guaranteed. The consequences of pushing planetary systems too far can be severe and long-lasting. Imagine yourself 5 million years ago as an ancient ancestor in southern Spain. For generations you've known only a vast, shimmering salt desert. Then a distant rumble grows into a deafening roar. You climb to higher ground and see a cloud of mist on the horizon. From it, a river of blue-green water gushes into the basin. The Atlantic is coming. A wall of water sweeps across the salt flats, swallowing hills and mesas. The air turns humid. The scent of ocean replaces salt dust. Each day the shoreline races closer. Landmarks vanish beneath the waves in hours. The world changes before your eyes, faster than you can comprehend. Is it a monster or a miracle? You witness the drowning of a desert and the birth of a sea. Your world and all life around you is changed forever. The Zanclean megaflood is more than a story. It's a lesson about our restless planet. We see mountains and seas as permanent, but they're just temporary chapters in Earth's ongoing story. The planet is alive, shaped by creative and destructive forces. The Mediterranean's death and rebirth humbles our perspective. The Earth follows physics, not sentiment. Water flows, plates move, stresses build and release. The universe is not static. It's always becoming. The peaceful Mediterranean hides a violent past. Every map is just a snapshot in a long, unfinished movie. Continents drift, mountains rise and fall, seas open and close. The story of our planet is far from over. We're privileged to piece together its history and witness its power. The Zanclean flood reminds us to stay curious and humble. The universe is full of stories, if we learn to listen.